2 after. So I'm going to get us started here. So my name is Andrew Wylam. I'm the president of Pandemic Patients, and you've joined our webinar today to learn all about continuing disability reviews for SSDI. So I've got a few reminders for you. First, we do have captions available. So if you'd like to enable those, please just use the captions button on the bottom of the screen. We also will have a Q&A. So if you have questions during today's webinar, just please use the Q&A feature instead of using the chat feature. So that way we can keep all those questions in the same place. And then finally, today's webinar is being recorded. So if you aren't able to watch the whole thing, we will have the recording posted on our YouTube channel probably by tomorrow. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joanna Smykowski, who is our staff attorney at Pandemic Legal, who handles our SSDI claims. So take it away, Joanna.
Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. I'm Joanna. I am New York City based, and I have been working with Pandemic Legal, which used to be Pandemic Patients back in the day, for quite some time now. So really happy to be here. Social Security, disability benefits. A lot of people don't know much about them. So glad that I can be here to shed some light. So what I'm going to do is, Andrew, is there a way for me to share my screen?
Yep, let me give you permission real quick.
Thank you.
Ooh. Ooh, they changed something here. Hold on.
Okay.
There we go. All right.
Good. Okay, great. So pretty much, let me just get this situated. So, because I'm not going to be able to do two things at once. Okay. So I think everyone should see my screen, hopefully. Um, Pretty much I'm going to kind of go through the basics of what continuing disability review is. And then if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat at any point in time, and I will answer those as I can when we're done. So continuing disability review. What is it? Basically, regulations state that Social Security can review what's your medical impairments, how you're doing, your records, to make sure that your condition, the reason that you got a favorable decision, the thing that whatever made you disabled is still happening. They can determine that you are no longer disabled, and then at that point, benefits will stop. So generally, the law will require them to do it at least once every 3 years. If you have a medical condition that is not expected to improve, it'll be every 5 to 7 years. So usually what I tell people is every 3 to 7 years, you can expect to get a review. What my colleagues and myself that work in this field have been finding out is that a lot of times long COVID, and not every time, but if you are at a hearing and you get a favorable decision from a judge for a lot of the long COVID clients, the judge will write at the bottom, medical conditions are expected, medical impairments are expected to improve. A review should happen within 12, 18, 24 months. So obviously that is a less time than that 3 to 7 years. And Social Security might be a lot of things, but they are pretty much on top of doing this, especially if a judge says that it should be done in less time than what the law dictates. So it at the very bottom of your decision, it'll be probably last couple of lines. You'll know if a judge gave you that kind of decision or not. So it doesn't happen all the time, but I have been finding, and a lot of my colleagues have been finding it is happening more often than not with long COVID clients, probably because this is still so new, and we don't really know what the future holds. So this doesn't just happen with long COVID clients, it can happen across the board, but we're seeing this pattern. So if you do, or when you do, get this continuing disability review, and sometimes, and I tell my young clients, right, you need to expect this. If you are 65 and you get a favorable decision, they're not gonna come and do a continuing disability review because you'll have transferred over to retirement age by the time that happens. Maybe even sometimes my clients that are like 62, 63 can also squeeze by, but any younger, you can expect that this is going to happen. So pretty much you'll know because they'll start sending you a lot of mail, similar to what they did when you applied for benefits. So you will get the first thing you're going to get in the mail. They'll let you know we are reviewing your benefits, and they're going to ask. It's the continuing disability review process is almost the same as the application process. You're filling out all the same information, your doctors, your medications, the testing that you've had done. And what they're going to be looking at is they're going to be looking at the date of the day after the favorable decision that you got up until present day. So anything that happened before that, you've already been considered disabled. While that is background information for your case, they're going to be focusing on what happened after you got that disability favorable decision up until then. So please make sure that you continue to go to your doctors, you continue on your medications, you continue on your medical treatments. I know a lot of people go and do clinics or testing or whatever it is. Keep track of all of that because you don't want to have to dig all that information out when that 3 to 7 year mark comes. So just keep track of everything. Make sure you're still going to doctors. Make sure it's not, it's better for you and it's better for this case. So need to have everything listed. They're also going to ask for employment information. So you are able to work part-time up until a certain amount, substantial gainful activity, which is a specific number every year. Some people do that. Maybe you have a yoga class that you're teaching, or maybe you did a long COVID talk, or maybe you did pick up some part-time work. They are going to ask about that. So make sure you have that information ready as well. The process for determining disability is the exact same process as it is when you first applied. The reason that I have step 4 here under brackets, when Social Security looks at your disability and whether you can return to past work, they're only allowed to look back 5 years. So for a lot of people, especially if you get that review past in that 4 to 7 year mark, the last time you worked is way behind. It's further back than those 5 years. So this step will get skipped over and it'll go straight from step 3, whether there's an impairment or a listing that is met, to step 5. As of now, there is no long COVID listing. I don't know what the future will hold for that. Hopefully that we do get one of those soon. I have seen long COVID clients medically equal a listing, so it doesn't mean a step 3 win isn't possible, but generally we're looking at a step 5 approval or denial on whether they think that you're able to do any other job that exists in the national economy. The stages, again, exactly the same as when you applied. So instead of an application, it's just the initial review and the determination. If they do decide that you have had medical improvement, they'll let you know when that date is. So it's not necessarily going to be the date after your last decision. It rarely is that. But there might be a date, I don't know, maybe a year out or whatever it is. They'll let you know when they think you medically improved. And they'll say medical improvement is as of this date. And then if that does occur, then you will get that denial. That also means that if you get the denial, moving forward, looking at your case, they're going to be looking at that time frame. So I'm just going to make up some arbitrary dates. Let's say you got improved January 1st of 2026. You get your continuing disability review. They start looking at your medical records and your information in March of 2029. And they think that you have improvement as of, let's say, February of 2027. So they're not going to be looking at that, from the date of disability to the medical improvement date. They've said, you know what, you were still disabled at that time. We're not even looking at that. They're going to be looking, the part that you're going to be fighting on this appeal is that date of medical improvement moving forward. If you do get denied, it's the same thing. You can appeal. There's that reconsideration level. Then if you get denied again, hearing level, that can go to the appeals council, that can go to federal district court. So all the steps are the same. And all the forms that you're filling out, the way the hearing works, the way all of that happens, whether they call you in for a consultative examination or not, everything is exactly the same as when you applied. You're just looking at it from a different time frame. The most important things to know, always deadlines. So again, what is the same is that if you do get denied, you have the deadline, which is 60 days after that denial. What is different and what is really, really, really important is that your benefits will stop immediately if they decide that you have reached medical improvement. You have 10 days from when you get that denial to let them know, I am appealing this and I want you to continue my benefits while this happens. This is a hard and fast deadline. I, in my decade plus of doing this, I've had clients come and say, well, I'm within the appeal deadline. Why am I not getting my benefits still if I'm appealing this process? Because you did not let them know within those 10 days. And there isn't much that I or anybody else can do about that because that is a deadline that they are really, really hard and fast about. So you make sure if you get that letter after the 10 days, you're calling them up, you're keeping track of everything, you're letting them know, I'm appealing, I just got this, it's within 10 days of me getting it. This is a really important deadline to remember. The appeal process takes about the same time as it did when you applied. So you're looking at years, months to years before maybe you're in front of a judge, you're getting a decision. So that is a long time without having benefits. So if, that it makes a difference. So make sure that if you do want your benefits to continue during that time, you let them know within the 10 days. The other important thing to know about is that um, if if they decide that you have medical improvement, if you appeal, if you fight, and you're not able to win that case, maybe you have to apply for benefits all over again, you bring it as far up and you're not able to, they will ask you to pay back all of that money. So they'll hit you with an overpayment. It'll probably take a couple of years for them to realize it, but you will have to pay back all of that money that while you were, according to Social Security, not disabled, you were still getting those benefits. So these are two really important things to keep in mind. 10 days to continue the benefits, and that there is a possibility of an overpayment. If you either forget that deadline, if you miss it, you'll still have to overpay or pay back from the medical improvement date. And if you end up not being able to win your case all the way up, those benefits you were getting over that time, they're going to want that money back. They will ask for it back right away, all at once, but you can figure something out with Social Security. So just something to know. Things that will help with your case, again, the same as when you applied. Start tracking your symptoms again. You don't need to track them, the entire time between when you get a favorable decision moving forward. But once you get that letter that they are taking on, they're reviewing your case, it's good to start doing that again. Journaling, diary. There are apps out there. I usually tell clients about the Visible app, but there's tons of other, there's other free apps or ways to track your symptoms out there. And while it may be difficult to track every single day, even if you have, a month of time that you're able to showcase to the judge, that's really helpful because it can just basically help extrapolate on what, month after month might be like for you. But as always, the more the merrier when it comes to this with data. The forms that you're going to be getting again that you're going to have to fill out that help with your case, right? Those function reports that Social Security will send you, and they will send, if you give them the information for a loved one, a spouse, any adult children that might live with you, a parent, a good friend, a roommate, like anyone that knows you very well and that can really testify in writing to the ins and outs of your day and how your impairments affect you. Those are the third party function reports, which are helpful to get. And then your own function report, where you talk about what it's like to be you on a day to day, as well as those residual functional capacity forms, which are the forms that I've spoken about them in the past. You can always, if you want to ping us for that resource, they're basically forms that doctors, whether mental or physical health, and there's a long COVID specific one that exists. They talk about your symptoms, and then the form is set up in vocational terms that Social Security listens to. So things like how much you can sit, stand, walk, how much you can lift or carry, cognitively, how much you might be off task, how much you can deal with, handle simple or complex tasks, how much you would be absent, things like that. I see clients And these things are not mandatory, right? The function report Social Security will send you, but the RSC forms Social Security is not going to send out because they're not required for your case, but they really help your case, especially in this kind of area that is so new and that so many people don't know about. And I can only hope, we can all hope that it gets better as time passes, but you never really know. Um, a lot of clients, and this is just kind of an off the across the board thing, they'll have doctors write them letters that say, my client John Smith is disabled, they can't work. And while it is wonderful that you have a care team that is supportive and willing to write that letter, that will get ignored. Social Security will look at, maybe if they write your diagnoses or if they write your symptoms, they'll pay attention to that. But anything that says they are disabled, they can't work, they can't do full-time work, that's not for them to decide. So Social Security is essentially going to ignore that entire thing. So I highly recommend, if you do have a supportive care team, therapists, specialists, any physical therapists, any doctors, psychiatrists, whatever, that are willing to fill out residual functional capacity forms, the more the merrier. And those are really going to help your case, more than any other statement by a doctor. And of course, medical records will get collected. So this stands separate from that. That's pretty much, I know this is kind of short and sweet, but those are the main things that you need to know. If you do get this letter, because again, this is all new, long COVID clients are only just starting to get these continuing disability reviews. Reach out to us if you have any questions. Again, you'll be pretty familiar with the process, but it's just better than kind of going at it alone and just figuring it out. And always keep in mind that 10-day deadline, but please do reach out. And at least, even if you want to handle the appeal on your own or whatever it is, because it does work a little bit differently than applications with the way contingency fees and stuff like that work out. It's always better to reach out to us. That way you're not kind of just trying to figure things out. And then it ends up being down the line, when you do finally talk to an attorney, there's only so much we can do. So when you do get that notification, please, please, please pay attention to the dates on there, the deadlines, and let us know. And I can, see if we can help in any way possible. But as a lot of clients have had their hearings in the last year or two, this is something that's going to be more and more relevant as time passes. And if you do get a favorable decision on a continuing disability review, incredible, excellent. Be prepared for the next one in the next 3 to 7 years, because especially if you are young, let's say you get disability benefits at 30 and things, hopefully they do improve and you don't need them long term. But if you do, then you're going to be dealing with this for quite a while before you hit retirement age. So you just need to make it, you got to make it through every single one. And be prepared for that. The only other thing that I do like to mention is if there are any children involved, the standard for children having disability benefits changes when they turn 18. So it's considered technically a continuing disability review, but they're being reviewed as an adult once they hit 18. So it's the same process. The law just changes on how they're evaluated under Social Security's eyes. And then, as always, if you are doing better and you are able to work, always tell Social Security everything that you're doing. Go through the Ticket to Work program so that you don't get hit with an overpayment, and make sure you just paper trail and keep track of everything so that you have proof, just in case something gets lost or they say they didn't get it or it disappears in the ether. You always want to keep track of anything. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. Not too much to talk about. I just know that it is a topic that people don't know much about and that it's kind of becoming more relevant as time goes. So wanted to give a little bit of a brief presentation on that. So if there are any questions, yeah, I'll take those.
Thanks, Joanna. So we did have one come through asking about an offset that an LTD carrier will be applying um, if someone stops receiving SSDI benefits. So the way this works is if you're receiving both long-term disability insurance and Social Security benefits, your long-term disability insurance company is going to deduct from your LTD benefit the value of your SSDI benefit. And so if you were to have a continuing disability review for your SSDI and they end your benefits, the person asked, would the LTD carrier stop applying that offset so that your LTD benefits are no longer being reduced? And the answer to that is yes, they will stop applying that offset because you're no longer actually receiving that money. However, be cautious because when SSDI or SSA denies your benefits, the LTD insurance company is probably going to use that as a reason to review your eligibility again. They could challenge your eligibility. So that's just something to watch out for. So that's one question we did have come through, but we don't have any others open right now. So if you do have any questions about SSDI or continuing disability reviews, please put that in the Q&A box, and we'll keep that up for another minute or so to see if any questions come in.
Awesome.
And so, Joanna, what have you been seeing in terms of when people do have these continuing disability reviews for long COVID? What does that usually look like, and what are the outcomes usually?
Um, Unfortunately, a lot of times they do deny for the. I hate being the bearer of bad news. The statistics are pretty similar to when you have your application process, especially if you're young. So in general, I don't have enough data for long COVID because those are just coming up. But what I can say is if that judge says review in 12 months, review in 18 months, they're on it. They are that 12-month in one day. I mean, maybe not that on it, but they're pretty much on top of it. I know that a lot of people that I've consulted with, like I said, I've been with Pandemic Legal for quite some time. And a lot of people that I've consulted with even a year or two ago, they are getting those continuing disability review notices. So they're on top of it. What the results of that is with long COVID, I'm not sure, but I just know in general for doing this a long time, they'll they'll find a reason. They'll usually find a reason to deny it, especially if uh, if it's a step 5 denial. That means they found work in the national economy that they think that you can do. So um, in general, what I found is if I had clients that won a case because they met a listing, less likely that they're going to get that step 5 denial. But by default, long COVID tends to not get that because the listing doesn't exist and a medically equal is pretty hard to come by. So they'll find some document preparer nonsense kind of job that they'll say that you can do. Remember that the people reviewing your file on the lower levels don't really spend that much time on it. So I do find that the denial rate is pretty consistent with what it is when you apply, which is unfortunately higher than I think it should be. So I would just be prepared. I always say prepare for the worst. Recon, it tends to be a rubber stamp denial. It doesn't always happen, but statistically it does. And again, your highest chance of success is at a hearing when you're in front of the judge.
All right, we've had a few more questions come in. So Allison asked if you lose your LTD benefits, can it cause SSA to review your SSDI benefits and deny you?
No. SSA has no idea what's happening with LTD, and frankly, they don't really care. Even if you're applying, and they'll look at your records from LTD, sure, but they have their own system, they have their own laws, they have their own thresholds. They don't look at veterans that are disabled. They don't look at any of that really. Like it's there and they acknowledge it, but for their purposes, they deal with their own laws and regulations. So they will review you on their clock that the laws state, not on whether or not LTD loses your benefits, or they're not going to know anything about it.
All right. And is there any way to minimize the chances or frequency of having a continuing disability review with SSA?
No, it's set by law. So um, it's you just have to be prepared for it when that 3 to 7 year, sometime between that 3 to 7 years. At the end of the day, they don't really want to pay it out the same way as private insurance. So any reason they can find not to, they will. And there's nothing you can really do about it, unfortunately.
All right. And I think you might have answered this earlier, but if you have a continuing disability review and um, SSA determines that you've improved and can go back to work, say 8 months earlier, do you have to pay back those 8 months of benefits?
So, yes. So, if you are appealing the decision and you want your benefits to continue, again, you have those 10 days to let them know. But if you do not win that case, if you go all the way up to federal court and you don't win and you have to do a no application or whatever, they will want you to pay all of that back. They're not going to figure it out right away, but when they do, you'll get a very scary letter that says you owe us whatever $50,000 and you need to give it to us in 30 days. You do have options, right? You can talk to them and you can do a payment plan, whatever it is, but you will need to pay those benefits back. The other thing that I want to mention is if you had a lawyer for your application process, that representation ended once you got that favorable decision and you started getting the benefits and your lawyer got paid, and your case is closed. So your attorney has no access to your information, no access to your file. They're not going to get this letter. Sometimes people are like, well, you were my lawyer back then. You didn't get that notification. No, the scope of representation has ended. So you are the only person that's going to get this, and you don't have representation. If you want to find representation, you have to sign that appointment of representation. You have to do everything all over again. But you're out there solo. So keep that in mind as well.
We got one more question from Allison. So she says that she was initially denied when she applied in 2022, and then she was approved in 2024. Will she get continuing disability review 3 to 7 years from the initial disability or the start of when she received benefits?
It'll be from when you got approved. So if you got approved in 2024, that's the timeline that you're looking at, 3 to 7 years from then.
And so going back to what you were mentioning earlier about when you can elect to continue receiving benefits, but you might have to pay them back. Do you recommend that people elect to continue receiving those benefits during that time?
That's really dependent on your financial situation. Most people I know do because they need it. If you are afraid of that risk and you would rather just try and see if, try and win and then go and get that back pay, you are absolutely within your right to do that. But most people need that money, so they're kind of forced into that situation.
All right. So it looks like those are all the questions we've gotten so far. We're going to leave it open for another minute. But Joanna, is there anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Again, keep everything, just keep track of everything, because that's your best bet. If you still have a good medical team, if you're still in treatment, all hope is not lost. Don't get this notice and panic. It's just a necessary evil. So, and then also to keep in mind that I kind of touched upon this before briefly. If you have a lawyer for your original application, right? There's all that back pay, there's a contingency. It works a little bit different for continuing disability review, especially if you keep getting benefits because there won't be any back pay. So there are a lot of lawyers that don't do overpayments and they don't do continuing disability review. So if you do want to find representation, start sooner rather than later because they just a lot of times don't do it. So keep that in mind.
All right, I haven't seen any other questions come in. So thank you everyone for tuning in today to our webinar. You will get an email with the recording probably tomorrow after we post it on YouTube. And if you do have any questions after today's webinar, you can always reach out to us at pandemicpatients.org or pandemiclegal.org. So it was great seeing you all today and chatting with you. And thank you, Joanna, for sharing your insights. And we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone.